All right, welcome to Season 3, Episode 2 of Pen, Picture, and Chat. Today with us we have Kayla Bradford, a local filmmaker. Thank you so much for being on the show, Kayla. It's great to have you.
Of course, I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. So let's actually just go ahead and get into it. Tell us about what it's like to be a filmmaker in Chicago.
Oh, wow. So I guess I would describe the experience as kind of like waves. There are a lot of ebbs and flows to the experience, but you're in a constant state of learning and digesting information and learning how to network and how to connect. It's definitely an unpredictable type of journey. It's definitely, you have to really dig deep at times to, find the courage and find the confidence to continue on a lot of the times, but it is incredibly rewarding. You are always met with creative challenges. You're always met with personal challenges. And being a filmmaker here in Chicago was such an honor because we just work a little bit differently here in the Chi, different than LA or New York and other big film hubs, ATL. There's a deeper sense of community within the filmmaking culture here. We help one another. We talk with one another and mentor one another, and there's just this very tight-knit, blue-collar worker type energy that is incredibly grounding. People mean what they say and say what they mean here, and it really is such a great experience, and I'm so blessed to be a part of it. Yeah.
That's really cool. So do you find that you're working with like a lot of the same people, even if it's like kind of like by accident? It's like, oh, it's good to see you again. Is that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I can't tell you how many times I've been on set and I walked on set and saw like a friend that I've worked on a feature film with or a friend that I've worked on a commercial shoot with. It really is a small but big community here in Chicago, and the people that you meet on projects, you really are in the trenches together. So you really do see one another at your most vulnerable moments. And those vulnerable moments come from, when you are challenged to your limits when it comes to the work that you do. And there is just this common ground that each and every one of us tap into when we're in the midst of a project, when, time is ticking down and it's time to put heavy to the metal and it's time to grind it out. Those are the moments where we make the deepest connections. So when I hop on set and see someone I've worked with before, you instantly remember them. Even if you don't remember their name or you're kind of like shaky on that or something like that, you always remember a face because you work together. You really like lean on one another when it comes to Chicago filmmaking. And once you're pretty much in the realm of the Filmmaker Society in Chicago, that's what you're in. You're a part of the family. And if you work hard and you're easy to work with and you're a good person and you're willing to learn and know when to lead and when to follow, people will continue to ask you back on projects. And from there, you can broaden your network more and more. So, yeah, I see a lot of people that I've worked with often when I hop on projects, and it's the coolest thing. You immediately feel comfortable, and you just like kind of do the key and talk about the last project you were on. Like, hey, what have you been doing lately? I saw you doing this. Like, it really is a family. It's a filmmaking community and a family here.
That sounds really special.
Yeah,
That's amazing. So talking about Chicago specifically, how would you say that you incorporate the city into the work that you make?
Let's see. Well, I incorporate the city into the work that I make. I really dive into the communities of Chicago. I make it a point to go to screenings and hit up events, even hit restaurants in certain neighborhoods. Because I believe the community is intrinsically connected to the story that we bring out in our films here, especially in the indie filmmaking sphere. And Chicago is just such an important lifeline for me. It's a true north because I'm so passionate about the community. Even, starting my own boutique production company, it's focused on small businesses and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs within the community of Chicago and like the North Shore areas. But Chicago has diversified my palette when it comes to content creation and digital media. You meet so many different types of people from so many different types of backgrounds and histories and experience that every single person you meet can be another stepping stone in your journey and in your experience as an artist. So I incorporate Chicago somehow in some way in everything that I do because I myself have been affected and changed by the communities and the people here. So there's no way for me, in my mind, as an artist, to create something where there isn't a sprinkle of Chicago influence, for sure.
That I love that answer. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you talked about that there are a little bit of challenges working in Chicago. Can you describe that a little bit more?
Well, yeah, I mean, just like any filmmaker or artist, there's that concept of starving artists that, that's been known, that title has been known since the dawn of time. Like, it's hard to find work. It's, hard to make a living off of it. And honestly, it is really a mindset and, the energy that you encompass that paves the way for your experience. And as we grow as artists and as we expand our networks and as we hop on to more and more projects, we're really put to the test on whether to focus on those successes or focus on, the monetary foundation and influence. And it's hard to separate both. Every artist's dream is to be able to support ourselves and have a financial freedom and still do, work that we love. So much to the point that it's almost therapy for us, but still have an influx of income in. And, it's not easy reaching that goal. It really isn't. And there were, a lot of challenges I face and continue to face, but I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything because they have made me the artist and digital content creator that I am. They have made me the filmmaker I am. A lot of those, setbacks really taught me how to step back and kind of change my perspective and change the way I, communicate, change the way I create. And a lot of the best work that I've done has come out of those darker moments. I'm a very, I'm someone who is very yin and yang in a way, and I kind of break through this rebirth when I'm at my lowest point, when I'm challenged the most. I'm one of those people that, takes it to the extremes, and then I come back and I have this, kind of brilliant blooming of creativity, and but I have to break through that ceiling, and those challenges really bring me to it. And I've faced a plethora of things, especially being a woman of color in the filmmaking space, especially pioneering in the technology field. I've had to work through a lot of my own kind of barriers and self-imposed limitations that I put on myself being of color. At points, I didn't even know I was, being, self-sabotaging to myself, but, I'd walk into a room and not have the confidence that I needed when I'd have the opportunity to sit at the table with other colleagues. For some reason, there were moments where I didn't believe in my own work and didn't believe in myself, and that, hurt me in the long run, you know what I mean? So it's been a learning experience to continue believing in myself, continue continue the understanding that I am worthy of this, and I have put in the work. I have over a decade of experience, and showing up at the table and, banging my fist down and being like, I'm here in the now, and I'm fucking good at what I do. So I'm going after, what I want. And the color of my skin, my sex, none of that even matters, because I'm showing up with some real shit, and I want you guys to see it as well. But yeah, I mean, the challenges, yes, there are, but I wouldn't change them. I wouldn't change anything for the world. I wouldn't be who I am now without them. So
wow,
yeah.
That's incredible. So, okay, so what would you say, having those challenges, having those sort of ideas that are sort of like, almost like predisposed because of this is the environment that you're in. For people that might be watching that might be in a similar position, how do you talk to yourself to get past that? Like, what do you say to, like, Kayla, like, I'm fucking badass, because you are. How do you move forward? What do you do to get past that?
I'd like to say that I kind of take on the Issa Rae moment. That's what I call it, the Issa Rae moment. And when she, in Insecure, she talks to herself in the mirror. She's just like, Kayla, you can do this. You got this. There's nothing holding you back. And you know that you're talented in what you do. So have the confidence, have the, knowledge and power through. This is a temporary feeling, and you got this. There's nothing to worry about. You already got this. And, it's like the self-talk, self-hype that you have to do. A lot of times I lean into music. I'm a huge music head. I would not, I feel like I wouldn't exist without music. I come from a very musical family, musical background. So, I have tracks dedicated to, like, hyping me back up. And honestly, in a big way, I lean into my network and the connections that I make in my friends who I've made through filmmaking. The friends I've made in this industry are some of my best friends. They are my family. And I know that without them, I wouldn't be where I am. I still wouldn't be, churning it and gunning it like I am now without being able to lean onto them, because there's no one else that understands the struggle that you go through than the people in your filmmaking realm, because there is no other industry like this. Especially when you hit really tough times and you start doubting yourself, because when those times happen, it's just a part of the process. It really is. And it's a part of the journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And comparison is a thief of joy. So it's really important to stick to your guns and stay focused and stay on your journey, because, it will come. And I ended up, really getting in this ruminating thought process of thinking that once I do this, I'll be successful. Once I do this, I'll be successful, without realizing that I already am. The fact that I'm here, the fact that I'm taking risks, the fact that I, really make an intention to improve and to learn and, hop on projects and help friends and, everything that you're doing. You have your hands in a lot of different things. You already are a success. So it's just a matter of realizing that and shifting your perception into something a little more positive, especially when, those those thoughts kind of break through, because they're going to come. And it's our duty as filmmakers and as creatives to break through that ceiling and continue on.
Wow. Okay, yeah, absolutely. So I feel like we've talked about a lot of, like, the struggles about working in Chicago, or the things that make it hard, which are, like, absolutely valid and real. And you also talked about that sort of sense of community that people have in Chicago that makes it special. Are there any other unique opportunities or cool things about being a filmmaker in Chicago that other people might not know about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, aside from community, I feel because there are so many organizations, Chicago Filmmakers, and Midwest Film Festival, Troy Pryor's Creative Cypher, and Mezcla Media Collective, and there are so many camera rental houses too, like Camera Ambassador, who they have been a huge effect on me getting into the film community and getting to know people, and even like really helped me in my knowledge in camera technologies. There's so many organizations and people that are willing to help. And it's just a matter of putting yourself out there, putting yourself in front of the right people, and just asking the question. Don't go into situations with, wondering, will this work? Should I ask that? Because that's just you holding you back. The way I learned was when I hopped on the Carbonaro Effect with True TV. That was my first production job, real production job for a multi-million-dollar production, and I hopped on as production coordinator. And that was my first time on a set of that caliber, in a set like that. I came from broadcast journalism, mind you. I had no idea about TV production and all of that stuff. I didn't even know how to use a walkie, didn't know the jargon, none of that. So I hopped on as PC, and I probably lasted about a month until I was fired. And the person who fired me is my now best friend, who's out in LA now, but I was rehired by the line producer as a PA, and I pretty much worked my way from the bottom up. Set was my film school. It really was. And when I started off, I wanted to be a DP. I wanted to cam up because I loved the visual artistry of it. I felt I was a great shooter, and I was like, I'm going to learn how to do this. So I would like sidle up next to the camera operators and ACs and ask questions when there was like a little bit of time spared. But other than that, yeah, I pretty much worked my way up on set. I asked the right questions. I made it a point for people to know who I was and know my name. I was super eager to get in there and do jobs, not necessarily like within my realm. So as a PA, you're one of the most important elements on set. Like, in order for that machine to run smoothly, we need PAs. So, but when you're in PA, you're in a very unique position. You're in a very flexible position where you can hop from department to department and just see what people need. It's kind of like you're scoping out. You have to use your intuitive ability. Sometimes you'll get shut down. Sometimes you'll get embarrassed, and but that's a part of the learning process. And make yourself so valuable that the next time there's a shoot or a project coming up, people think of you immediately. And ultimately, being kind and a hard worker, because people do remember you, and people want good people on their team, no matter how much experience you have. Like, if you do a good job, you ask the right questions, then you'll be brought back. And that's a part of the learning process. You can go to film school, which I didn't. I studied broadcast, but you can go to film school. But when you're out in the real world, on those real TV sets where time is money and you have executive producers breathing down your neck, you don't bring the right coffee, you're fired. That's when like the pressure's on and you have to learn quickly. I remember I was driving box trucks in the city in Lower Wacker. GPS doesn't work down there. So I think that was one of the most anxiously written moments of my experience. You're driving a huge truck, you're down in Lower Wacker. I'm not from these parts, so I was just a lot of it is trial and error. But really taking a chance is important, especially in the filmmaking community. And believing in yourself when you step in front of these people. The worst thing they can say is no, but more often than not, they're willing to help you. They're willing to grab a coffee with you. And it's just, having that fearlessness, because, being a little reserved and quiet and, not really a go-getter isn't going to get you far, because if you don't do it, someone else will. Mm-hmm. And it really is about stepping out in front of the top runners and asking them questions and putting yourself out there.
Cool. So you talked about having this work ethic and getting to know people and even accidentally running into people that you already know from other projects. Yeah. Has that given you the opportunity to either help other people and bring them onto a project that you're working on, or vice versa? Has someone been like, hey, Kayla, I got this really cool thing, you'd be perfect for it? Has that happened? Have you had that happen?
Yeah, right now. But also, yeah, 100%. especially like for the executive barber for my documentary or other projects that I've been brought on in the past, I would be asked if I'm working in production as a line producer or something like that. Someone would say, hey, do you know any like PAs that could, potentially, help us out? So as you go through your filmmaking journey, you'll slowly start to build a network and Rolodex of people that you work with. And it's important to keep an eye out on who you work with, because you never know when you may need them, and they never know when they may need you. And, we honestly help each other. The collaborative space in Chicago is incredible. It really is really cool. The first indie feature I was on was with my friends, Ramsey Atassi and Sean Kelly. They run a motion lab, and they did an indie feature, Bad Animal, and that was like the first indie feature I was on. I was on there as a PA, kind of like everything. The thing about me when I was a PA, I was an everything PA, so no one really knew where to place me, because I would be jumping from place to place to place to learn as much as I can. I love knowledge. I love learning, so I was constantly eating that up. But for different projects, you start to build that list of people that you enjoy working with, and you reach out to one person, you say, hey, do you know anyone for this? And they'll say, actually, I have the perfect person for that. And especially when you want to niche it down, and when you want to bring, BIPOC, queer, LGBTQI plus people on the sets to like enhance that visibility, you definitely, like, if you know one person, they know someone, and then they know someone, and then that person has an entire list of people who could fit that niche that you really want to hire out, and they can send you over the list. So it does take time, but it really is a matter of, again, putting yourself in the front and asking them, hey, do you know somebody who would be a great fit for this? And more often than not, you can connect with someone who would be interested in working with you. And there's nothing more beautiful than collaborating and creating something with someone else who has the same drive and passion as you, because that energy really is so precious to tap into when you're working together on something substantial and memorable and artistic and creative, and you're just building more of a community. It's just build, 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 and it continues to get bigger and bigger. So there's always something positive in the works. No matter what stage you are in your career or in the process of filmmaking, there's always something good happening on the side.
That's sweet, yeah. So you mentioned your documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, of course. So my documentary is The Executive Barber. The idea came to me during COVID time. So maybe at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, and I felt this divide in the community where, we really weren't connecting like we used to. And I started, shooting thoughts around in my mind. I'm like, what brings the community together? What, is a fundamental space where people, when people are authentically themselves, when they, take off the mask and they're able to, just be in the moment. And barbershops popped up in my mind. I've watched my nephews, my dad, cousins, work with their barbers throughout, 30 years. A barber would be in our family, and, they become a really substantial part of people's lives. And at first, I called the documentary The Gentleman's Sanctuary, because that's where people go in, they kick back, they kiki, they talk with each other, they have conversations, talk about their lives, talk about their wives, it's whatever. And it's such a unique environment that has just been, interwoven into our community since the beginning of time. And that also includes hairdressers and beauticians and things like that. But these people really get intimate with their clients. They have very intimate relationships when it comes to communicating, and they're almost therapists in a way. And barbers are almost healers. Well, they are healers. The barbering craft started in 500 AD. Don't quote me on this. BC, in Cairo, Egypt. And that's where the roots really began. And barbers were barber surgeons. So they did outpatient surgeries, like, stitches and like teeth removal and stuff like that until legislation separated it. So barbers really did come from a healing modality, and that has evolutionized into, you know, hair cutting and something else. So that idea pretty much snowballed into something bigger, and I'm like, I should do a documentary on barbershops in the south side of Chicago, because there are plenty of movies and shows, you know, LeBron's Barbershop, and plenty of movies too with Ice Cube, but no one's ever taken it in a way where the focus is on the client and the barber's relationship to one another. So I sent out a lot of cold emails, did some cold calling, and one of the barbers that responded, his name was Steve Duraso. And the first time I saw him, he had like a crystal in the middle of his forehead, and I was like, I'm like, what am I about to run into? But, you know, I'm a very spiritual, energy-driven person, so I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot, whatever. And I spoke with him. I did a preliminary interview with him, and then I actually went to his shop and spoke with him even more. And a lot of his values and the way he views life were similar to how I viewed it too. He's a very, very spiritually driven man, but he has made such an impact on the clients that he has. He has completely found a way to transform their identity from the fundamentals of who they are into something even better. He honestly guides people to become the best versions of themselves, and he truly, truly believes in that transformation, all from a haircut. So what he's doing is not just giving a haircut. He's giving this transformational experience with an hour of his time. He has his own suite, so it's a very structured and very it's a very structured process that he uses. He's also a businessman and entrepreneur, so he's very, you know, data driven in a way, and he calls himself the executive barber because he works with, you know, high level clientele in the city, and you know, he brings them in. So that was just the starting point for me. Was with Steve. And now, you know, I'm starting to expand. I brought another barber in. His name is Bobby Price. His shop is in North Lawndale. And he is a very community-driven type barber. Like, he wants to give back to his community. His main thing is creating an event space for artists and musicians so they have a place to share their music and share their art. And he also wants to bring technology, the innovation of technology, into the community by going cashless and like kind of pushing community members to open bank accounts so you know they can, you know, start their banking process, and he's just bringing back to his community. That's what drives him. So every barber has a different story and different roots in the neighborhoods that they are, but they're creating this entire, you know, atmosphere of change and productivity and positivity in their community, and that is so powerful. So now I've finished the concept piece, which is like a 55-minute runtime. We've had 3 premieres, and they were really successful. People loved it. So that was validation for me and my team that, hey, we have something here. We should, you know, make it even bigger. So now we are in the process of turning it into a feature-length film. And, you know, the whole prospect of funding and things like that are still something we're still working out, but I know it's something that will be really important when it comes to sharing with the community. So that is the Executive Barber documentary, and that's what it is.
Wow, that is so meaningful and extraordinary. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Check it out. Absolutely. So that's pretty huge. So besides like expanding what the executive barber is, are there any other goals or things that you have your eye on for the future for working in the city?
Let's see. Well, goal-wise, of course, most recently I was able to assistant direct on 2 music videos with Gorgon City, and they were featuring Chicago artists. One was Drama Duo, and the other was with Nez. And I found I had like a really great affinity to assistant directing. With that, you know, clarity and cross-functional communication, departmentally, like on set and within production. Clear communication is really, really important. And when you have that on point, that means things go a little more seamless. Things are a lot cleaner, and I found that I truly loved, you know, kind of leading that on set. So it'd be great to hop on more projects like that and like pushing more into the commercial space. Now that the strikes are going on with SAG and the writers, the film space is going through a transitional period. But I truly believe it's a positive thing. It's rough, but it is a positive thing because we do deserve what we work so hard for. You know, we deserve higher pay. We deserve safer work environments, and this is something that, you know, we've been fighting for a long time, the filmmaking community as a whole, and possibly this is a moment where that actually may happen. So there needed to be a shift in order to make it a sustainable livelihood for people in a sustainable career. That's one of the reasons I'm pivoting a little bit, because I realize, hey, it's a lot of hours, it's a lot of hard work. Is this sustainable for me? Everyone has a different limit, and everyone, you know, chooses different paths. But ultimately, I think this is a good thing that's happening, because we do need a transition. It does need to get better for us, and I believe that it will. Wait and see. But yeah, other than that, I'm hoping to continue creating. It's important to keep up the creativity and artistry, even if you do a project or, you know, a piece that won't be seen by the public and you're just doing it for you. That's equally as powerful. I'm trying to do that more when I'm in this transitional change period of my life. And, you know, I'm gonna keep swimming, just keep swimming. And yeah, that's all I have moving forward for now. But yeah, I'm hoping that, you know, people take away from our conversation today, and I hope that more filmmakers come through Chicago and see that we are like generating an incredible hub for filmmakers here in the city. Chicago is the best. It really is. I love the culture. I love how people work here, more than other places. So yeah, I have really really good hopes for Chicago in the future.
Amazing. So, you've talked about quite a few like different things that you've worked on. You've got a lot of variety on your resume. What would you say, like, between working on like a TV show to making your documentary to working on music videos, what would you say are like maybe the most noteworthy differences between all of those different things?
Oh wow. Well, let's see. Honestly, every project I approach differently. I pretty much scope out what the necessities are, what I would be asked in consideration of the role that I'll be playing in. In the commercial space, sometimes it's like a 1 to 2 day run type thing. It's very fast paced, and it can be a little more corporate than like feely, you know, emotive and things like that. So in the commercial space, there's more money in the budget, so you can ask for a higher rate when you work commercial. And you know, it's a good job. You come in, you come out, and you know, you make some money, and it's really fun to be in the commercial space in Chicago, especially because Chicago, it was an advertising hub. Think Mad Men and stuff like that. Chicago was an advertising hub first and foremost. So there is a lot of commercial driven production companies out here, an opportunity out here in the commercial spot. As far as documentary, that is a long game. It is a long-term thing, so the interviews come in slowly, and once you get one interview shot, that adds to your repertoire, part of the chapter of the documentary, and documentaries kind of take a life of their own. They start to, you know, transform. They could take a hard right or a hard left, and you're not expecting it, but you kind of have to go with the flow with documentaries. It's a long game of production, you know what I mean? So it's important for documentaries to choose your team with intention and like choose a team that believes in what you're doing and believes in the story. And did you say music videos?
Yeah.
Yeah, music videos, also a fast-paced thing. Music videos are fun. They're a little more lackadaisical, depending on what music video that you're on. Definitely, as an AD, making sure that people are in the know on timing especially when it comes to music videos. Sometimes talent may show up late and things like that. So there's a lot of adjustments. You have to be very detail oriented and solution oriented for music videos. Make sure, talent is really comfortable and people are having a good time. And most importantly for all three of those is to bring good energy. Bring good energy and be kind to everyone. That is especially important in the Chicago space because we don't work with assholes. Like, no one wants to work with an asshole. Nobody wants to work with someone who's, bringing just like, that people are just kind of
weird vibes.
Yeah, weird vibes, kind of just ugh. Nobody wants to be around that for 12 hours. Like, we're all on set. We're on set for a long time. So, like, knowing to bring smiles and good energy and, like, keeping up the rapport and, like, kind of kicking it with people, that's what's so great about the filmmaking space here. And, we're a little unhinged and all of us are a little bit crazy, but at the same time, we bond, and it's like a special bond that you only find in those environments. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. So I would say those are the main differences between each of those. And they're super accessible. You just have to do your research and find people on Instagram, Twitter, send emails out, sit down with coffee. Like, there's so many opportunities out there, and Chicago really does give you the space to try it all out. And someone told me, Todd Freese, who's at Resolution Studios, I did an interview with him when I was working for a tech startup there. He said that give yourself 3 solid years in Chicago and see where you are. And he was not wrong about that. 3 solid years of working hard, doing the projects, putting your nose to the grindstone, and the end goal, you have no idea where you may end up. It's a lot of hard work, but it's worth it. So
Can I ask you, what's your favorite thing that you've worked on?
Oh wow, my favorite
your
thing.
Your most
that's
favorite.
Oh, that's a tough one. Ooh.
You can pick a couple. There's
I can pick. Okay, so I think obviously my documentary. I think one set that I was on, it was actually a commercial set, and I'm pretty sure it was for a plumbing company, which is funny. But, the person I worked with, Ariana Vargas, she created a mental health app called the Stigma app. That's been recognized by Google, and she just was awarded an accelerator. But she is such an amazing person that I worked with her as her AD, and for some reason that set was the most fun I've ever had on set. Everybody was vibing, everybody was in synergy, everything flowed, the work flowed also, everybody was talking, and I really love sets like that where it's friendship, like, off the bat. Like, it's just, when you connect with someone on set and it becomes a fun time, that's one thing. But when you connect with everyone and everyone's just talking and vibing and having a good time, that is priceless. So that was one of the most enjoyable, times I've had on set. I left, when you leave work feeling fulfilled, and that's happened a couple of times, but, when you leave work feeling fulfilled and you're just like, this is going to be the dream team, that's how it is. The second one that I really enjoyed was working on the indie feature Bad Animal that Sean Kelly and Ramsey Atassi worked on. That was one of my first kind of sets I worked on, but I was able to go to so many different places in Chicago, and there was a huge musical element to it that I was already in heaven. It was crazy, but at the same time, it was so great to be kind of in the trenches in that way, because indie films, it's a small budget. You're hopping from place to place. It's like you're in this kind of guerrilla mindset and just trying to get the work, and you're doing it for the art. You're not doing it for the money. You're not doing it for what you'll make from it. You're doing it for the art, and you're doing it for your people. You're doing it for yourself. Like, it's just that kind of creative hub that the energy keeps in flow. So those are 2 great experiences that I've had when it comes to the production space. And the music videos were fun too. I really enjoyed those.
Yeah, it all sounds like fun in its own way.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned before that you have training in broadcast journalism, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that or did that like help you in any way in just like how to function like with like in the film industry environment?
Yes.
I suppose.
Yeah, I mean 100%. Coming from broadcast journalism, I wanted to go into journalism because I truly believed people are the fundamentals of what human what human storytelling is. I knew journalism had power. I knew journalism had access, and I knew that if I could take a story and mold it into something that's easily digestible to viewers and was able to easily communicate in a linear way to people who wanted information, that has power in itself. I've watched journalism, studied journalism from the beginning, from print to broadcast, and I've seen it flip politicians upside down. I've seen it break down and make people, and I believe that was a very intrinsic and powerful way to get information out. So that's why I was so drawn to journalism in the first place. Originally, I wanted to work for Vice News, go into investigative specs and like get into like these dangerous, like sketchy situations and, interview drug lords and stuff like that. I was really like hyped up on that stuff. But getting to the power and foundation of a story was something that was always inherently within me. I was good at connecting with people. I was good at speaking with people. People would just tell me their stories, even when I didn't ask. And, I wielded that. I wanted to use that. And that's what eventually brought me into filmmaking because, journalism at the time, I didn't want to be put into any type of box where I would be a part of some caricature. Back then, you weren't really allowed to have the fro or natural hair, and they wanted you to have like a straight lace kind of like kind of look or whatever back then. And I was like, I don't really know if this is for me. And then I saw everything that happened with Trevor Noah and other journalists of color in their field, and politics was never something that I was very much, I know about it and I read up on it, but I'm not drawn to it, and it's not something I wanted to build my career on because I'm very opinionated when it comes to like certain political things. But I didn't want to wrap my heart in it because the things that I work on, the projects that I'm on, I become attached to sometimes and emotionally invested, and I felt that really wasn't the direction I wanted to go in. But it served as a catalyst for me to kind of flow into filmmaking and documentary filmmaking, especially documentary filmmaking, because there I had the autonomy, I had the power to take the elements of a story and mold it into something in post-pro and push it out to people in the way that I thought was most effective.
Wow, yeah. So do you think that that has the potential to kind of like almost like mold where you go? Is it still something that you carry with you, I guess? Like, could you see yourself maybe being like, oh, here's this specific, like, Chicago thing or Chicago issue, and I want to explore that. Is that something that you could see yourself doing in the future?
100%. 100%. I think that journalism, the journalistic element within me is with me always, and it always will be. I am always a hound for the truth. And I believe the truth is, the true north of honest and representative storytelling, getting down to the nitty-gritty of like what people aren't telling us is so important to get out there. I'm just going about it in a different way. It's always within, the content that I create. You'll see me sometimes on my Instagram go into deep holes. That whole subterranean thing with the billionaires, I was in a hole. Oh my gosh, I was in there for a while, man. I was looking at all kind of articles. I'm like, they might pop up. It was a giant octopus. I don't know, but like, yeah, I was on that though, and like, but like, honestly, in all realness, like, I looked at the specs of the subterranean. I was like checking out like the history of the owners and where the company divulged their funding, all of that stuff. So that journalistic element in me is still very much in me. I spent 4 years of my career doing it, and I spent even longer building up packages and following people for their stories because I believe people have power in storytelling. Story is what makes us, our history, our present, and our future. And it's what drives, it drives the rhetoric, or it drives the script of who we are as human beings. So yeah, it's in everything I do, and I'm never not gonna be a journalist at heart. I just think it was a seamless transition into filmmaking in Chicago.
Yeah. So one thing I feel like with investigative journalism, or that sort of like even just like type of storytelling, especially when you are like representing a voice or something like that, there's people that are going to always like critique or like, or have like something to say. How do you deal with that, I guess?
Man, honestly, in some ways I haven't dealt with so much pushback, more so in person I have. And over the years I've, tempered down instead of reacting. I've learned how to respond. There's been a lot of, political charge, especially when it comes to race and acceptance in the past 5 years or so. So there's always, this kind of, I guess there's just always this volley of conversation that goes back and forth. And over time, I've learned to step back, and not always engage in the way I would want to, but step back and listen to the other side and kind of work to understand their reasonings and where they come from, and approach it from a different angle if they do want to hear my opinion or hear my experience. Because, in the past when I was younger, I would just get pissed. I would get angry. I get really emotively charged up, and eventually you realize that it's a waste of energy, it's a waste of time, because if someone doesn't want to change their mind and they truly believe what they believe, then it's never going to happen, and you're just wasting your time at that point. And also, you're not allowing the space to, kind of come to an understanding ground where you can agree to disagree and still like maintain, that relationship, or, continue the rhetoric at a later date, because you never know what happens. So yeah, of course there have been times where there is pushback, but one thing that I always like focus on and practice is you can't deny the facts. And that's the journalist side of it. You can't deny the facts. You want me to pull up a quick article and statistics, and like I'll do that, and we can just go head to head with the facts right here. I'm also a Virgo, so that's a huge element to it. But it is big. It's been a big transitional time for me the past 5 years to learn how I respond and how I receive differing opinions. You know what I mean? So I've learned in a way to work with it instead of working against it. And that's made a huge difference in, my mental and emotional health. And sometimes you just got to learn that people are going to be people. They're going to believe what they believe, and you're going to believe what you believe, and it's okay to have those differences, and we can still move forward from that.
That's, I feel like that's a really impressive skill, actually.
Yeah.
And I really respect it. So with all of this, we've talked about kind of having the push, the drive, the constant, like, it's just like it's a commitment to one's work.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance that drive and also your life? How do you do that?
Well, I wouldn't say I have it all balanced just yet. Like I said before, there is an ebb and flow to it. And really, I think I've learned something important within the last few days, actually. I sat myself down and wrote down my priorities and like what I prioritized in my life and what I found as a foundational necessity for myself. And that has changed over time. When I first got to Chicago, it was the art. It was the art and the creative. Like, that is what drove me, and that was my priority. That's what I wanted to focus on. And I did that for like 3 to 4 years. I did that. And, you get to a place where you're kind of like, oh, well, something kind of has to give sometimes, like you're so focused on your art and on your work that you kind of start drowning a little bit in it because you're so, hell bent on making something happen that you forget the important reasons of why you started it in the first place. And like you're forgetting the reasons of why it made you happy, and you're forgetting like the little things that like brought you joy. And it's so important to tap back into that, because there are moments where it can be incredibly overwhelming and you get down and out about not being where you want to be. And then you find yourself comparing yourself to other people's successes. Like, why am I not there? Why aren't I getting the money that I need? Why aren't? And that can just become so noisy in your mind because all of that stuff really plays to, a system in your brain where you're not actually being productive and like trying to problem solve anymore or focusing on the art anymore. Now you're just like down and out, and then you start to run into like the self-sabotagey type things because you're just like bummed about it. And those times will happen. But really, when you get down to it, you're like, okay, you have to understand that it is a marathon. It is a journey, and there are stages to the journey. So sometimes when you get to a place where you're kind of like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? Sometimes it pays to step back, reevaluate, change your perception, and maybe change your path a little bit. And it doesn't mean forever. You could be working on a project. There are projects out there that people have been working on for like 10 freaking years. You know what I mean? And sometimes if it helps you in that moment to shelve it for a little bit and then use that time to come back to yourself and like go, get yourself financially stable, get yourself comfortable, and then come back to it and try it again, that's okay. It's not like the industry's going anywhere. It's not like your friends are no longer going to be your friends. And I came to that realization pretty recently that it is a grind all day in and day out. And like, that's personally for me, it's not sustainable for me to, be on that at all times. You know what I mean? Because there's so many elements of life and beauty in life that you may miss because you're so like head in the ground about like where you want to be with your career, and you never know what opportunity or connection can pass you by because you're so focused on what you don't have. When in actuality, there's so much more out there and so many more creative endeavors that you could try that could like re-inspire you. And Chicago is an incredible place to do that, to like reignite yourself and to like get inspired again. And I think it's, just really important to know where your limits are and not feel bad if you do need to step back a little bit and reevaluate where you want to go. Or if you want to try something new, try that, because you never know if that will bring you back a whole new idea. And like, so be open to change, be open to trying new things. Chicago is a great hub for that. Go to some events. If you're, feeling a little low about things, go to a screening. Go to a screening for like an indie feature or something. Buy a ticket and go out there and talk to the crew and director and see what they say. Like, they may have gone through the exact same thing you went through. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to my film network, and they've pulled me out of the deep dark hole of of depression. And it that comes with the territory of being an artist. But yeah, that balance that you speak of, I'm still working on, and I think we all are on some level. But, art is what brings all of us joy. Creating is what brings us joy, and we don't, do it for what it can give us. It's just a part of us. It's just a natural part of us, and all of us, human beings, we're meant to create. So I think we actually have it way more figured out than a lot of other people.
Makes sense to me. So I feel like part of the reality of the situation too, though, is money.
Yes.
So would you say that like it is possible to make a living doing film in Chicago?
I've seen it. I'm not saying that I'm doing it right now, but it definitely is. It definitely is. And it may not come all at once. Honestly, it may not come. And it's honestly like the way you want to how you lead your life and like how you want to, you're gonna get as much, you're gonna get back what you put in as far as work. And it is a tough industry. It's cutthroat. Not everybody gets the opportunity to work in this space, and not everyone gets the opportunity to, work full time in it, and not everyone is able to make a living from it off the bat. But, I've met plenty of people who have. I've met people with like highly successful production companies that have worked their way to that 20 years, and their path wasn't linear either. So it's not out of scope. It's definitely not, and it's possible for everyone. It's just a matter of, staying with it and knowing, when to pivot and when to change and when to come back to it, because I think with every industry, especially in the creative space, we're all over the place. We're literally all over the place. And, you can make a living as a freelancer in the commercial space. I have a friend who's a line producer, and she just gets continuous work. But it took her a while. I'm sure it took her a while to get to that point where, she's always working. But sometimes there is a lull, and you're like, oh man, no work's coming in this like whole winter. Haven't had anything for 2 months. And that's a part of the grind, and that's a part of the culture and community of filmmaking. So just know what you're in, pretty much, and accept it for what it is. But, the industry will change. It's in a transitional phase right now, and we're going to get back on our feet. We really are. Film isn't going anywhere. It is literally what makes America, I feel like, like in a sense, as far as art, and not even America. Why did I even say that? Just like the world.
No,
the world,
totally.
like old school, old films, and pioneers and geniuses like Wes Anderson. Like, it's one of those things that are going to be a fundamental when it comes to storytelling, and it's not going anywhere. So it's a matter of just knowing the environment that you're in, knowing to step back and reassess when necessary, understanding that everyone is going through it. Everyone has been through it. It's a hard industry. It's a competitive industry. And you just have to find your legs and find what makes you happy within it. Find your niche and, work on that. And like I said, we're all creators. So you're always going to have the power to create something that's inherently yours. You always have that power. And you have the community. You just have to go out and get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for anybody that might be watching, that is like either like a young person who wants to get into film, or anybody who wants to get into film, do you have any advice for those people?
So do I have any advice for these people? Yeah. My advice for anyone who wants to go into filmmaking, you are a badass. That you're even wanting to do this. You are going to meet the most incredible people and build the best community going into this industry. Make sure you have a true north. Make sure you know what inspires you and what drives you, because you're going to, run into situations where you really will be challenged, and remember that in those moments are the best teaching moments for you. Remember in those moments there's always opportunity for growth. So know when to listen, and know when to, when you get further into your career, know when to lead as well. Everybody around you has one goal, and that is to create the best, end result for everyone. Be a team player, and understand that everybody around you are inherently artists, just like you are. So come with good energy and be kind, and it's limitless, and what you can reach. So that would be my advice. Go for
it. Amazing. Kayla, thank you so much for joining us here today. It was such a wonderful opportunity to hear what you had to say. Awesome, and we're so excited to share the episode with our viewers. Thanks for watching.